Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our final think tank presentation. And thank you for your patience. We're working out some audio issues, so we hopefully got them all figured out. But like I said, this is our last think tank presentation. So we're excited to hear about early care and education from Misty Pearson and Beverly Hunter. And for the last time, if you wouldn't mind putting your name and organization in the chat so we can have attendance. And Lori will just give it one more run of giving us the history, the background, the real quick synopsis of how we got here. And then we'll hand it over to Misty and Beverly, and then we'll have some discussion afterwards. So Lori, when you're ready.
All right. Hold on. This might be the one. Misty, did you bring bad luck with you today? Just kidding. Just kidding.
Yeah, it was not me. I was in the first session.
All right, guys. Last one, think tank presentation focused on the early care and education system, really looking at healthy eating and active living within our state's early care and education system. So again, this is just to provide an opportunity for all of you to hear from Misty Pearson and Beverly Hunter, who are our state leaders working on this identified priority, and for us to discuss how Leadership Council can help to advance this forward over the next couple of years. So it's all part of our state health improvement plan, really within that chronic health conditions priority area in our state's health improvement plan. When we look at the goals and objectives, it really falls under Healthy Palmetto being the lead state coalition of organizations that's focused on healthy eating, active living, and healthy weight for the state health improvement plan. And we identified our purpose as those that are unifying and mobilizing healthy eating and active living efforts that create equitable opportunities for all South Carolinians to achieve a healthy weight. And when we look at the state health improvement plan objective related to this, it really is around decreasing adult obesity rates, trying to get down to 31.5%. And so as a Leadership Council, we've been monitoring this data over time. It's actually going in the wrong direction, which is why it's so important that we keep our focus on the things that we can do. We are currently at 36.2% as of the September 2021 report. In South Carolina, we also have data on our youth from our South Carolina FitnessGram system. And so that is also important, not just to what Misty and Beverly are going to be talking about today, but also helps us to predict those adult obesity rate trends in the future. And so when we look at the Trust for America's Health State of Obesity report, there's lots of different recommendations that states should be focused on to reverse obesity trends. And so they're in these 6 categories, and we had this long list of recommendations we started with, and we whittled those down. And when we left in December, we had whittled that list down to 13 different priorities that over the next couple of years, we really wanted to advance in our state. And now we are at the last think tank presentation, because we are now down to 8 priorities that we as a collective will be supporting moving forward over the next couple of years. And so the last one that you're going to hear about is early care and education. And the word specifically is in yellow, because when we had our meetings with Misty and with Beverly, it really was, there's a lot of work that's been done in the early care and education system in the state. But right now, in time right now, over the next couple of years, specifically wanting to touch on child care licensing and quality rating improvement system, but specifically for a statewide system to support outdoor learning environments at child care. So that's what you'll hear about today. We've already heard from our FitnessGram partners that are prioritizing school physical activity programs. We've already heard from our Food Policy Council that incorporated 3 of our priorities, one being community design and land use for physical activity. We've heard from our trails partners talking about trail development and maintenance. Food Policy Council hit on healthcare food insecurity screening referral this morning, as well as the bigger healthy food system. And we also heard from WIC and from SNAP for seniors. And so We are at the end of our schedule here today at 1 o'clock talking about state early care and education. And so just a reminder, put on your Health Departmental Leadership Council hat. We are a collective trying to put our collective support behind these priorities. So how can we best do that? Your organizational hat. Are there any ties or any linkages that you can see as you're here in the presentation? And then any other committees, task forces, coalitions that you're involved with as well. And so after the presentation, you need to be ready to answer these two questions. What are you still curious about? And what ideas did this generate for you? So that is my final time going through that. I will now gladly turn it over to Misty and Beverly.
All right, great. And I see, Beverly, that you were able to get on camera. So I will pull the slides up and then I will, are you still on mute? So I guess it looks like I'll be doing it all because you're still on mute. Is that what? Okay, that's good. So let me pull these up.
Oh, wait a minute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I don't use Zoom much. I guess we know why. Anyway, so I'm Beverly Hunter from ABC Quality, and I just want to say thank you for this opportunity to share what we're doing and to find ways for all of us to explore together how we can communicate to a larger population than just the early care and education population. Okay, so South Carolina, the Department of Social Services is South Carolina's early care and education system. We're kind of the hub of all things early care and education. The director of our division is the state's Child Care and Development Fund administrator, and this is a large source of federal funds that come into the state, and this has grown immeasurably. With the COVID epidemic, we have literally hundreds of millions of dollars that we're having to deploy to help stabilize early childhood programs throughout the state. But ordinarily, we're still the larger sum of funding. Our division includes child care licensing, ABC Quality, which is what I'm with, CACFP, the food program, Head Start, South Carolina vouchers, which provide assistance for low-income families, and SC Endeavors, which is the state's workforce registry. Primarily, they have other functions as well. Just to touch on briefly about child care licensing, in case you're not aware, that's the state's regulatory entity for basic health and safety in all types of child care programs, unless they are specifically exempted from regulation. There is a governor's committee advisory committee to the licensing area. It's an interesting group. They have advise and consent powers. To be named to that, it goes through the governor. And the majority, there's certain requirements for membership, but the majority are private childcare operators. So they're not always motivated to make wonderful improvements because it costs money. But it is a representative group, including other types of members. The regulations have to be reviewed periodically, usually every 3 years. Unfortunately, they have not been reviewed for many years. There was a long drought, I guess, but they were reviewed in 2018. And we know that we had some of our health partners to represent, at those meetings when they were kind of putting out the proposed regulations. And, the things we were trying to move towards was the specific times and the need for daily outdoor play. They did change the word and make it daily, but that was primarily what we achieved with that. So that just kind of, they're the foundation, the basics. You know, ABC Quality is a voluntary program, and it's the state's quality rating and improvement system. That's whereby any program who wants to voluntarily, you know, improve the quality of their care can participate in. You know, we use measurable standards to define the quality levels. We have a variety of incentives that we offer to people, you know, if they're willing to, you know, to make those changes. It's a 5-level system: A+, A, B+, B, and C. And so the payment for that is what we call a tiered reimbursement. The higher the quality, the more potentially you can receive in terms of payment. We do pay what you actually charge, but it does allow a full range of childcare programs to participate with us. We have been working with DHEC since, my goodness, since back in 2008. You know, first to improve nutrition and the physical activity environment in childcare. And after much study, and we used the USC School of Public Health, you know, to, you know, review recommendations and what was going on nationally and in other states. And we chose, they presented us with a whole great list of standards. And interestingly, we chose, I would say, the majority of the standards, and we embedded them into our early childhood program standards. So we were really one of the first states to make a move like that at the state level. But the purpose of the nutrition and physical activity standards, which we called ABC Grow Healthy, was to increase children's consumption of healthy foods and the amount of time that they were spending being physically active. What attracted us to joining, you know, the mission of preventing obesity, I think, was the fact that so many children are in childcare, number one, and secondly, they spend a good bit of their waking hours, you know, in childcare. So we had lots of opportunity to implement, and, you know, even outside of what parents were doing, because they might be eating 2 meals and a snack while they're there, and certainly ample opportunity for physical activity. So it was really a top down and bottom up approach. We created a state system, and then, you know, we had ground level implementation with staff at a large number of programs in the state. So, you know, this has been an evolutionary experience. You know, we started with the nutrition and the physical activity, and what we found with staff, you know, it wasn't that they were saying, no, we're not going to do this, but it was like, okay, so we're outside. What are we supposed to do? And so that led us to thinking, okay, we've got to revolutionize, you know, outdoor learning environments and naturalizing, you know, the space outside for children to experience. So that kind of brings us up to where we are now.
All right, great. Thank you, Beverly. So I think Beverly did a great job explaining a little bit why we're not specifically focused on policies and standards in childcare licensing and the quality system. We have, I mean, a long history of doing that work, and this really is, the outdoor learning effort is a result of where that started in 2012. So a timeline I thought might be helpful to see what outdoor learning efforts look like in South Carolina. So it did start in 2012. And like Beverly mentioned, one of the things we heard early on from childcare providers was just help us. we're willing to go outdoors for a set amount of time, multiple times a day, but our children are bored. There's no shade, it's hot. The children are throwing sand, they're throwing the balls over the fence. The caregivers are uncomfortable. Help us figure out what we can do to the outdoor space to make it more inviting and engaging. And in that ask, we started doing some research, and we found this group at NC State University. It's called the Natural Learning Initiative, and it could not have been a more perfect match. They're landscape architects by training. They do have experience in early childhood and multiple age groups, but they for years had been doing research on designing the outdoor space at child care facilities and how that increased children's activity. And so it really was about this process and model they had, and it was called Preventing Obesity by Design. They had been doing it in North Carolina for several years, where they would go into a program, help them talk about what they want their outdoor space to be, create a design plan, and then over 3 to 5 years incrementally design. So we reached out to this group in North Carolina, and we started working with them really in 2014. And then our efforts kicked off in 2015. We started Preventing Obesity by Design South Carolina, and it really was focused that point on design plans. So we worked with providers in Florence County the first year, Spartanburg County the second year, and then we went to an online model. And so it really was the group from NLI helping or creating these design plans for these programs. So by the end of 2018, we had 20 programs that had received a design plan. They were receiving technical assistance. We had also been thinking about sustainability and how are we going to actually make this work in South Carolina. So we had a landscape designer in state go through some of their training. So we really were thinking about how do we sustain this. So that pretty much got us to 2018, and then using all the lessons we learned from the providers, from the funding that was provided, the technical assistance, there was varying levels of success. We engaged community partners, we engaged Clemson Landscape Architecture. And so we basically reviewed all of that, and then that led to Grow Outdoors. So we used that information to rebrand and reframe how this was presented. So you'll see that in 2020, we rebranded to Grow Outdoors South Carolina. So we've since then had more architects trained, and then we've had more state level staff going through some training, and I'll get into more about the demo sites and pilot sites. But we had been working for many years on this. This is just showing that we've been very intentional, and it's just finally hit that tipping point where we're ready to scale it up much larger. So the mission of Grow Outdoors is to increase young children's access to quality, naturalized outdoor environments that support play and learning across all domains of development. And this is specific to the child care setting. This could apply to any setting, but really for Grow Outdoors, we are talking about child care facilities and specifically child care centers at this point, not family home providers, just child care centers. And so, like Beverly mentioned, we know that children can spend 8 to 10 hours of their day in these facilities, and that is where they have the most opportunity to be physically active, and they're potentially getting 2 meals and a snack while they are in this environment. So all aspects of their development are affected by their surroundings. COVID has not been a wonderful thing, but it has really elevated, I would say the one thing that's a positive, it has really elevated that conversation about being outdoors and the importance of that. And so the timing has been really good for Grow Outdoors and where we're trying to go. I wanted to say with Grow Outdoors, it is bigger than the design, but that is a big piece of this. When we talk about this, Grow Outdoors, it is about helping childcare programs move through a process where they ultimately get a professionally designed plan. Because one of the big lessons we have learned is that if they don't have some sort of guide, they can take money, thousands of dollars sometimes, and put it in their outdoor space, and there's no rhyme or reason to how it's laid out. There's no flow. It's still not engaging. And so we really feel like the way we frame this and the importance of having a design plan is key to the success of this. So what is a naturalized outdoor play and learning environment? So following the model that was created in North Carolina by NLI, that's still the model we are following. So in childcare, basically, if you think about their outdoor space that's usually surrounded by a fence, within that space, it has diverse features. So we're talking naturalization with trees and shrubs, plants and flowers, but also specific settings that are usually defined as activity settings. And so best practice would be that there are at least 10 of these play and learning settings in every play space. So you might have an infant toddler, you might have a preschool age, and then you might have a school age. So through these plans, the plan would be created so that they would have these 10 areas that when children go outside, that they have the opportunity to have sand play. They have something like earth play or a stage for dramatic play. The idea is the more settings you have, the more children will want to be outside. It's more engaging. The nature aspect is just, that brings all the benefits that come with nature. Part of this is also for caregivers. If you create the environment where children aren't fighting and having behavior issues and there's shade, the caregivers are typically more willing to stay outdoors as well. A really big piece of this, and from I would say the public health side of this, is all of the plans include a primary pathway, which is typically a concrete double looping pathway that the research NLI has done shows promotes movement throughout the space. So not only are children using the pathway typically with tricycles, but they're moving throughout their whole space. And so they've done some behavior mapping that shows the increase in physical activity when you renovate the outdoor space. And the other piece that all the design plans include are raised bed gardens. So there is a focus to make sure that there is an intentional flow with the primary pathway and that you integrate the healthy eating for each age group. All right, so I won't go into great detail, but these are the 6 steps of Grow Outdoors. So it is a process of learn, design, implement, and this is what child care providers would work through to receive their design plan. Currently, we have demonstration sites that have been identified that are going to serve as these programs that have gone through the process. They have a design plan. They will host tours for other programs, because seeing this type of environment is so much more than trying to explain it in a PowerPoint or even seeing pictures on paper. You need to be in the environment to really understand what it looks like, what it feels like, and how you would use it. So programs will go through this. Really, I'll highlight the key steps. Step number 2 is a course through NC State. It's a 12-week certificate course. And one of the really big lessons we learned is providers need to understand what this is all about. To truly develop it, manage it, and sustain it, they need to understand what an outdoor learning environment is. It's not just having a pretty design. It's that actually you get a design, you implement it, but then you need to use the space, but you have to maintain the space. So it's a shift away from the big play structure to this more naturalized environment. So that's a big piece. They have to go through this 12-week course. Then there's some engagement that needs to happen with families, with staff, and surveying the space. The next big step then becomes the design process, where they go through a process with a landscape designer and talk about what they want in their outdoor space for their children. And then we focus on helping them implement the design And then along with that comes training. How do you use it? How do you get caregivers to want to be outdoors? How do you use nature for learning? So there's many aspects to the training piece of that. All right, so a little bit current status. So like I said, we've been working on this for quite some time. We at this point have 35 childcare centers that have received a design plan since 2015. And like I mentioned, we now have the 7 demonstration sites that are being developed. We have another 7 programs that are piloting the true 6-step process right now. They're going through it, providing feedback on what works, what doesn't, where do we need to make some adjustments. And then we have 3 other sites that we're really excited about that they serve children with special needs. So they're a very particular type of childcare program that we hope will be future demonstration sites. So they tend to have more of that adaptive type of equipment in their outdoor space, but we will be working with them to create more of the nature and making sure the other aspects are in place following this process. Also, I guess current status, I'm really excited to share, and Beverly, you can chime in here, that we recently received word from the Division of Early Care and Education that they are willing to invest a fairly large amount in outdoor learning over the next 5 years. And so with this funding, it would involve a collaboration with Early Childhood Health Outdoors, which is a group or a program of the National Wildlife Federation that's housed in Colorado. It's a little bit, linkages, but they are connected to NLI. There's a connection there. But this financial support would actually involve hiring 2 designers to be located in South Carolina as part of the ECHO team, which is the Early Childhood Health Outdoors. They would take on the design for childcare facility, because while we've been working with designers, they do this as a side to their full-time job. And so we really can't scale up unless we have dedicated designers. So we would be looking at, through a contract with DHEC, hiring the 2 designers. We would hire 2 staff that are dedicated specifically to professional development and helping programs implement the design. And then there would be a 5th position, which is a volunteer coordinator, which is also helping programs, but also looking at that bigger picture of how can you use like a BMW in the upstate if they have volunteer days? How can you coordinate some of that bigger effort to support these childcare programs? So we're really excited about where that's going to go. The expansion of the design capacity and how we can support providers means we can go from doing 35 designs over, what's that been, 8 years, 7 years, to looking at doing at least 40 to 45 a year per year for up to 5 years. And so hopefully we'll go beyond that. And what's also exciting is we have been slowly, working on this for several years. And as you slowly do things, word starts to trickle out. And so there has been just in general an increased interest in outdoor learning that started for childcare, that moved to connect children to nature. And so we have gotten a commitment from additional partners, primarily First Steps 4K wants to be involved in Grow Outdoors. And that's a really big thing, in that we're trying to make sure that those that are interested in it for childcare are at this table, because we want this to be the model that programs go through to improve their outdoor space. So First Steps 4K is on board and willing to be part of the advisory group. And our other partner that we've communicated a lot with is a First Steps office, but it's Quality Counts in Spartanburg County. So those are the initial, but we know that there will be others that have expressed an interest in being a part of Grow Outdoors as we expand. So I'm going to let Beverly talk about our target audience a bit.
And Beverly, you just have to come off of mute again.
Okay, all right. I get my fingers in the right place. Okay, so, as we're talking about this, to give an idea of the scope of what we're talking about, most recently, we've probably got around 1,200 licensed childcare centers in the state. And of that number, mainly because of the stabilization grants that we've been giving out and requiring some of them, if they want to get the money, then they have to participate in the voluntary quality program. But we now have 64% of the, in that range, 64, 65% of centers participating in ABC quality. And this would be our primary target audience, I think, for this. But statewide, we serve children birth through age 12. Obviously, we have multiple races, multiple abilities, and Misty talked about 3 of the programs, the demonstration type programs that would be focused on children with special needs. The enrollment of these programs can range from 12 to 150 or more. Most of them aren't huge, but depending on the location. We've identified, our demonstration sites for this new program. We've got 7 in the upstate, 3 in the Midlands, 5 in the PD, and 2 in the Low Country. So we just feel like it's very important to have these demonstration sites out there where people can go and see for themselves what this is about. So let's see, I'm supposed to talk about health equity as well. So, 70% of the children in South Carolina have all available parents in the labor force. I think we've all been hearing about this, with the COVID pandemic, because, the problem in people maintaining childcare with them having to close because children are sick or staff are sick. And the need for parents to, be able to maintain their jobs. We do, we have what we call SC voucher, and that is, a subsidy program for low income parents to use, to either be going to work or in school. And during COVID, we have expanded the income eligibility requirements, 300% of poverty. So it really is reaching a much broader swath of parents who need help. But, on the average, there's 11, 12,000 children participating, with vouchers. And usually we're in the vicinity of 20 to 22,000 over the course of a year. So, also the reason we're targeting centers is that 92% of the children receiving vouchers are enrolled in the child care centers. So that's definitely the largest group. To get vouchers, it's kind of like the voucher program and ABC quality are married. You have to be in the quality system to receive vouchers. And that's part of our mission to improve quality for all children. So that's kind of us from a health equity standpoint.
All right. Thank you. So I think we've kind of already discussed these. The only one I would add to this is we have in the last 2 years put over 90 early childhood professionals at the state level. So childcare licensing, again, even though we're not focused on policy and standards, we have been working with licensing, the quality rating and improvement staff, and other programs like First Steps and other state entities to help establish foundational knowledge of what outdoor learning is. So that's been very successful, that we've had over 90 successfully complete the 12-week course. So quickly about some of the challenges. So design capacity has probably been our largest challenge, in that providers are really interested in this. There's been such an interest in it. We have now First Steps 4K wanting more of their providers to go through the process. But again, we only have 4 designers right now who have full-time day jobs. So that's been a struggle, is how to increase that capacity. But hopefully with this new contract with DSS and DHEC and ECHO, that will be taken care of. And timing has always been an issue. Like, we have great plans. We are very thoughtful about how we're going to roll it out. And it's not a bad thing, but there always seems to be this influx of money that comes from the federal level to DSS. And then we try to quickly figure out how can we scale it up. So we're trying to, and we're in that scenario now where we want to scale it up faster and get it out to more providers. All of that to say, the interest really has been from early childhood providers themselves and these state professionals. Where we really need some help, and it's a challenge, is that family perspective. Childcare providers have to follow regulations, for the food program or for licensing or the quality system, but they listen to their parents. And if their parents say, we have dealt with this for years, I don't want my child outside because it's too hot, it's too cold. I don't want you to serve them healthy foods because they prefer chicken nuggets. There are bugs outside. My child has allergies. They might scrape their knee on a concrete pathway. And so this is a challenge, because if families don't support the move to the naturalized environment and more time outdoors, providers may step back and say, well, I'm not willing to risk losing the families I do have if they're not on board with this. So that is a challenge. And so these are our goals, and then I'll tie it to what we're asking for. So we are going to formally convene the advisory group. We need to develop a communication plan, which is a big part of the messaging of Grow Outdoors. We want to develop our demonstration sites, and then we're going to establish the contracts. But I'm going to slide quickly here into the support. Where we really need support is, once we have those messages developed, help us get that message out to families, not so much about the Grow Outdoors, the process and the steps and the design plan, but we need help making families understand why children need to be outdoors. Like, can we get that message out? And so I think that was a strong tie to the Trails presentation. How can we promote the benefits of being outdoors, so that families hear it, whether they're in the childcare setting or not, because at some point they may be in the setting. And we hope that if they will hear the message from multiple angles and multiple places, that when they come to a childcare facility, they'll be more inclined to support what's happening on the ground. And the other piece that we would like help with is help us connect with organizations that are already working in the outdoor space. Again, ours is childcare specific, but there's a clear overlap between what Trails do and trying to get families outdoor. And I think there's a mutual benefit to both of us to try to figure out how we can work together, because we can promote within the childcare setting. They can help us promote the message of just being outdoors in general. So that is what we're asking for, is really communication support. Just know we're still building Grow Outdoors. We're really excited about the potential of where it's going to go. And we look forward to seeing how we can all collaborate. And that's it. That was long.
Thank you, Misty and Beverly. That was great. Very exciting and informative. Yeah, I love hearing about this, because I know it's, I know you guys have been working on it for a long time, but I also know it makes such a big impact for those children's lives. So it's awesome. When you can, Misty, if you want to stop sharing screen, and we'll move to discussion. So we'd love to hear from the Leadership Council what ideas the presentation generated for you, and what are you still curious about? If this is the first time you've heard about naturalized outdoor environments for early childcare, what are your thoughts and feelings about that, and what ideas do you have? Jim, go ahead. Can you hear me, Jim? You're muted if you're talking.
There, I'm trying. There we go. Sorry.
Yeah.
Trying to multitask here and it's not working well. Just wanted to clarify the exact target audience. So to be eligible, the target audience is only for licensed daycare providers. Is that correct?
Oh, I'm not on mute. No, pretty much anybody can participate in ABC Quality. We have a number of license exempt after school programs that serve children, through age 12. And, we have church programs, we have nonprofits, we have for-profits. Pretty much everybody can participate with the exception, and it's in some state law or something, but we cannot do what's called registered churches. There's about 200 of them statewide, but that's about the only exclusion. And then we also serve children in family childcare homes who can serve up to 6 children, and group homes who can serve up to 12 children. And so we have them enrolled as well. They just don't hit large numbers of children.
Awesome. Thanks.
Jim, I would add to that. I don't know, the funding that's coming, right now, like we're talking about, our target is ABC sites, but the 4 other designers we anticipate keeping them engaged, that we know there might be, let's just say, an exempt program that's not in ABC that is interested in this. There is still those other designers. What's not as clear there is the funding. And so I think that's some conversation with other partners about what would that look like, because those designers do need to be paid. So kind of echoing Beverly, it really is, once we get all the pieces in place, I think any provider, regardless of whether you're truly a licensed or exempt or an ABC, would in some way have an opportunity to participate in Grow Outdoors.
What other ideas came to mind when you were listening to Misty and Beverly? Anything?
Sarah, I was thinking about Sarah Wilcox. I was thinking about the churches that y'all work with. There may be an overlap with, they may have childcare centers on site, and it definitely would elevate, the fan work. And if the children have space to practice that physical activity, there would be a definite connection there.
Yeah, absolutely, since that is so common, and also the physical activity, but then also the garden and the nutrition side of it as well, and sort of that concept. Yeah.
I was thinking about just the amazing growth in this project over the last few years. Wow, congratulations. That is so cool. And to have sat in on some of the meetings with the Spartanburg crew when that was all happening, it's so cool to see this continuing to flourish. And I think that, once you have the 2 positions in place for the landscape architect folks, I could see so much opportunity for funneling these landscape architect students through there on a regular basis for projects, and then maybe even the potential to grow it even more. But it's having that core point person that they can connect to, instead of, like you were saying, Misty, instead of it sort of being a side thing over here and a side thing over there and somebody's 100th thing on their plate. But I just see having, once you have that in place, there's going to be this ability to even wrap other things to it, which will be, and particularly I keep thinking about, probably because I've been in curriculum meetings all morning, thinking about learning experience opportunities for graduate students in that world.
Right. And it's
Very
been
cool.
interesting, the 4 landscape designers we have, one of them works for Greenville City Parks and Rec. And so beyond this, he's now done the course, but he looks at it too when he's thinking about his day job.
Right.
Where can these design principles be put into place when they're thinking about their community parks? And another one actually is at Clemson. I think he teaches part-time. And so he made the comment last week too, that he now thinks about it when he's looking at a setting, where can he apply these principles? So what's nice about that is, we engage them for the purpose of the childcare, but now they're thinking bigger when they're working in other settings about where can these same principles be integrated or implemented in a design, which is exciting.
Yeah, really exciting. That's cool.
I thought it was interesting that you brought up the challenge of families not wanting some of their kids to play outside, and bugs and allergies and all of the things that you brought up. Thought that was an interesting point. Are there any strategies that you currently have to kind of overcome that challenge, or to maybe educate parents on the importance of being outside?
I think Beverly can better speak to this, but it's an ongoing challenge, I think, across the board when it comes to quality in childcare, whether it's eating or interactions or just different things, why you don't need the TV or why you don't need pre-printed, what do they call them, like coloring sheets or whatever. But it's just education, because most of them, I would say, are approaching it from their own fear. Our generation, I would say my generation, is probably different and more so than the current generation coming of parents and time spent outdoors. So it really is a knowledge issue, and caregivers are a part of that too. If they're not on board, that's a big part of it as well. So we're just really going to have to do a lot of education so that parents and caregivers are supporting what the provider wants to do in the move to a natural outdoor space.
I just have kind of a funny story, when we first started doing this, because, we serve birth, all the way through 12. And we got a call from a provider because we were encouraging people, don't leave, babies in the cribs all day long. They need to be out and moving around. And this one lady was like, what do you mean? You just want them to roll around, outside of the crib? And we're like, yeah, that would be good. So we've heard a lot of interesting, scenarios. I had another lady who, to your point, she had complained to the center. She didn't want her child going outside. And so the center gave her my number and told her, well, they had to do it because we told them they had to do it, kind of thing. And so she calls me and she went on and on and on. And I said, well, we live in a really good climate. You can be outside and, and enjoy nature and all of that. And I said, if you lived in New York, you wouldn't be able to be outside as much. And her comeback was, I'm from New York. And I thought, okay, well, you're just not going to be happy, I guess. But
That's funny. Yeah, you got to be careful what states you call out, I guess. Well, I do think it's interesting, even thinking, so I'm also a registered dietitian, so I'm kind of thinking nutrition wise as well, that there's a lot, of emerging research about the importance of, a strong gut microbiome and introducing, bacteria, and playing in the dirt has been shown to actually increase the diversity of our bacteria at a young age. So I think a lot of it crosses over, and I think even vitamin D has been a hot topic. The importance of sunlight and vitamin D and how that affects mood, and kind of going back to what you guys were saying about just really providing that education and trying to make it something appealing. So great work.
I just want to add on to that, as a mother now of a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. I know when it's been a rainy day because they haven't been outside playing, and their mood and their sleep patterns change compared to when it's a nice day and I know they've been outside playing. So all parents want their kids to be happy and healthy, right? that's expected, right? But what we also want, but we don't talk about, is we want them to not be in a bad mood, to minimize the amount of temper tantrums they have, and to go to bed at their bedtime. So I think if we could communicate, like, the more they go outside and play, the more tired they're going to be when you pick them up and take them home, and the more hungry they're going to be, and they're going to eat their dinner that you serve them, and then they're going to go to bed, and they're not going to have a temper tantrum about it. I think if you told me that, I would be sold.
I wonder too, I don't know how difficult this would be, but maybe because the messaging is coming from within DHEC, it would be possible. But WIC nutritionists have a lot of contact with young parents, and they are promoting physical activity. But I was a WIC nutritionist in 2013, 2014. And so we were promoting, moving around and the recommended amount of physical activity per day, but we weren't necessarily promoting that it would be outdoors and the benefits. Like Molly, you just shared several great examples of connecting being outdoors with with healthy eating and nutrition as well. And so sharing some of that messaging with potentially, that audience, I think could be really powerful. So there's a lot of those like one pagers and little pamphlets that are given out at WIC, or probably now all done virtually. But if one of them could be the benefits of playing outdoors for your child, maybe that could be beneficial.
And I absolutely think the indoor physical activity is important, especially with Russ, you being on here. But the reality is in childcare, that is where they have the most space, and it is hard in a facility, in a smaller classroom, to get a lot of physical activity. You can integrate it, but the biggest, the largest body movements and the most moderate to vigorous is going to be outdoors. And so it's all important, but yeah, I think we'll get more if we can get more time outdoors in a better environment.
I thought this was a great presentation. And sometimes seeing is believing. How can it be where parents can actually see the children in the setting, enjoying, having fun? Everyone wants to see the child, having a good time. So whether it's developing promotional videos or whatever, but I think that would be, because if I were to see my child having a blast, that was just it would sell it to me.
Yeah, since Misty called me out here, I'll add one point. I know this project is about enhancing the outdoor environment, and that certainly makes sense. But the point I'll add is that one of the strongest predictors of whether or not a child is physically active is whether or not he or she is inside versus outside. And that's pretty much regardless of how interesting the outside environment is. So, step one is get them outside. And then step two certainly is it's better if the outside environment is safe and encouraging and supportive of physical activity.
Well, we made it to 1:59. So thank you everyone for your thoughts and your discussion on this. Thank you, Misty and Beverly, for your time and the great information that you shared. This was great. It was a great way to end our think tank presentation. So if you missed our earlier presentation, just a quick reminder, all of the recorded think tank presentations, except for the one from today, are in Teams. So if you get the chance to review them before tomorrow afternoon's Leadership Council meeting, we would greatly appreciate that. We'll have some more discussion about kind of absorbing everything that we heard through those presentations. And so it will be helpful for you to have seen them. But I think that's it. So